Let's start today's show off with the latest on Jerry Jeudy. Sean Payton spoke to the media today, and he said Jerry Jeudy was close to playing in week one. Actually, Jeudy did an on-field workout before the game against the Raiders, tested his hamstring and whatnot, and he almost played, but ultimately Denver decided, let's be a little extra cautious about this. Let's not rush it. Let's not push it and shut him down for the first week. But the fact that Jeudy was almost about to play on week one makes me very optimistic that he will be ready to go week 2 against the Commanders. Not a surefire thing just yet. We know soft tissue injuries can be a bit of a enigma to crack when it comes to when they will be 100%. But really encouraging news coming out of Denver Broncos headquarters regarding Jerry Jeudy and his availability going into week 2. Now, coming up on the rest of today's show, we've got some roster moves to go over, and then we're going to discuss an interesting trade idea I saw on the internet involving Danielle Hunter. So a lot to go over on today's show. But let's start things off with the latest roster moves. Caden Sterns was placed on IR. Sean Payton, unfortunately, believes it is a season-ending injury for Sterns, who had a knee injury in week 1. And then wide receiver Lil'Jordan Humphrey, he was promoted to the active roster once Sterns went to IR. That opened up a roster spot. And Lil'Jordan Humphrey, who got the first touchdown for the Denver Broncos in 2023, he was promoted up. And then Michael Bandy was brought back onto the practice squad. But Humphrey to the active roster is, I think, an encouraging sign to see, at least for himself, of course. But Denver is still in a bit of a limbo when it comes to their wide receiver room, right? Not just from a health standpoint, but from an actual productivity standpoint. I mean, who's to say Lil'Jordan Humphrey can't be this team's wide receiver 2 or 3? I don't know if we've seen anything out of Courtland Sutton, Marvin Mims, or Brandon Johnson that is just so surefire, 100%, the biggest lock of the century, that Humphrey can't rise the ranks a little bit after a really strong week 1 performance. Now, when Jerry Jeudy comes back, that's going to make everyone's life a lot easier, but definitely keep an eye on Humphrey. I thought he had some good snaps on Sunday. As for the safety room, with Caden Sterns gone, it is these 4 players. Justin Simmons, Kareem Jackson, Delaren Turner-Yell is a special teams guy, and then J.L. Skinner is a rookie just trying to find his footing. I don't think you're going to see a lot of 3 safety looks out of Denver for the rest of the season with Sterns gone. It's going to be a lot of what we've seen over the last 3 years now. Justin Simmons and K-Jack holding down the back end. Now, never miss a single roster move or overall news or even rumors when you are subscribed to the channel. So consider hitting the sub button down below. Lock yourself in for the best Broncos coverage all season long. Now, next up on the show, I want to talk about an interesting trade idea involving Danielle Hunter coming to the Broncos. So, Bleacher Report put out an article with some guys on the trade block potentially moving into week 2. And I thought, looking over it, there might be a name that could catch Denver's eye. Ryan Tannehill, no. Derrick Henry, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, no. T. Higgins. T. Higgins is a great player. I don't know if Denver's ready to add another mouth to feed to this wide receiver room when it comes to the payday they have coming for them. Mike Evans, Marquise Brown, no. But here we are at the edge rusher department. Danielle Hunter, Derek Barnett, and Chase Young. Now, it does not take a rocket scientist to look at what Denver did in week 1, specifically the pass rushers, and go, there is improvement to be had, right? Randy Gregory, Jonathan Cooper, Frank Clark, your top 3 outside linebackers, edge rushers. Neither of them, any of them, got a sack. Zach Allen was probably the most productive player when it comes to the pass rushing unit, and he only got 1 tackle for loss. So I think there is a window for the Broncos to explore adding a pass rusher like Danielle Hunter. Now, he was rumored to be available for a trade during the offseason, and that really, went down the toilet once the Minnesota Vikings and Hunter agreed on a new 1-year, $17 million contract for this season. But Hunter was drafted by George Paton, or at least while George Paton was working in Minneapolis. So there is some sort of connection, which I love as fans and media members. Whenever we see player and GM overlapped in the same city, surely that is a match made in heaven. I've got no idea if George Paton was advocating for Danielle Hunter, or maybe he opposed this draft pick. Who knows? But there is the connection, so you can easily Charlie Green yourself into thinking he might come over to Denver. Now, before we get to the rest on Danielle Hunter, I got to tell everyone about today's sponsor, Game Time. Listen, stop stressing over getting tickets to go see the Broncos, the Avs, whatever your favorite team is, or a concert or comedy show, because Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. I personally use Game Time when producer Rolly and myself caught a college football game at the start of the year in Charlotte, North Carolina. Shout out to Drake May. But you know what? Without Game Time, we would have paid a heck of a lot more. But thanks to Game Time, we got $20 off our tickets with our first purchase. We downloaded the Game Time app. We were able to pick the best tickets and best seats for us because Game Time's got an awesome feature where it gives you a nice bird's eye view of all of the seats and also what your actual view is before you even sit down in your seat. So download Game Time today. Use our promo code Broncos Chat to redeem $20 off your first purchase. So download Game Time, promo code Broncos Chat for $20 off. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on the best tickets right up to the day of the event. You can also get flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Broncos Chat for $20 off your first purchase. I want to share this quote from the Bleacher Report article that Christopher Knox wrote when it came to trading Danielle Hunter potentially, where he wrote, after dropping their season opener to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Vikings are already off to a bad start. Cousins could emerge as a trade chip if things really go poorly for Minnesota. But Hunter is a player it could consider moving now. Dealing him would save $11.5 million off the 2023 salary cap, money the team could put toward extending star receiver Justin Jefferson. I mean, here is your Emmy and your Best Picture and your Primetime Award for the biggest Week 1 overreaction ever. The Vikings dropped the first game of the season, and Kirk Cousins is getting traded now. Settle down, Bleacher Report. I don't know if it's a slow day in your office or what, but the idea of the Vikings just completely tearing it all apart after winning the division last year because they dropped their season opener against the Buccaneers is a wee bit of an overreaction. But Danielle Hunter, I could see, not Kirk Cousins, I think, but I could see Danielle Hunter getting moved if things really do start going south for the Vikings because they went 11-0 in one-score games last year. That's going to regress back to the median. And so maybe Hunter, a guy who last year kind of returned to the top of the mountain with a 10.5 sack season after missing a couple of games and missing a whole season altogether in 2020. But you look at what he did in 2019, 14.5 sacks. When you think of the greatest edge rushers in our game right now, Hunter's probably not a name that comes to mind, but he stacks up with the best of the best when he's healthy. And right now, he is healthy. So if you were the Payton duo, if you were George and Sean Payton, would you trade for an edge rusher? Drop a Y for yes or an N for no. I want to see where everyone stands after the first game of the season. Should Denver start looking into acquiring another edge rusher? They traded for one last year after moving on from Bradley Chubb. They got Jacob Martin from the Jets. So this would not be the first time George Paton has made such a move. For me, it's definitely a Week 1 overreaction to go, Denver got no sacks. We're trading for an edge rusher. But I would be lying if I wasn't a little concerned, right? I don't think this edge rusher unit coming into the season had a lot to stand on. Frank Clark, for whatever reason, fell down the depth chart throughout the preseason, so clearly the coaching staff doesn't view him as a big-time player for them. Randy Gregory is looking more and more like a big-time free agent signing bust. The best player of the bunch might be the 7th-round pick Jonathan Cooper, which no offense to Jonathan Cooper, but if Jonathan Cooper is your number one edge rusher, you got some problems. So I could see Denver at least pick up the phone and seeing who is available for a trade. If Sean Payton, who is a complete, full-blown addict to winning, wants to improve his pass rush, Danielle Hunter would definitely improve it. Now, I'm not quite sure what Hunter goes for exactly. I know this much. I'm not interested in trading a first for Danielle Hunter. The guy is in his 8th NFL season, so he is in the peak of in the prime of his career, but also he's closer to the end of his career than the start of his career right now. So no second rounder. That belongs to the Saints. You have 1 3rd-rounder left. If Denver wants to move on from another day 2 draft pick, I think it would cost a 3rd to get Danielle Hunter. Maybe that's a bit of an overpay, but the guy had over 10 sacks last season. Mid-season trades sometimes cost a little bit more because the other team knows you have to do this. You are in a bind. You need a pass rusher. We've got you by the balls. This is our offer. Take it or leave it. But if you were George and Sean Payton, would you do this trade? Be honest with me. Trade or pass? Let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are when it comes to trading a third rounder for Danielle Hunter. Personally, I am not interested in giving up any more future assets. The Broncos do not have a second-round pick. They have 1 third-round pick next year. I am not interested in going into the 2024 NFL draft with a first and a fourth to start the first 3 days of the draft. Not happening. Especially if this is a Broncos team that is closer and closer to a rebuild rather than being one player away. I'm not trying to be a big rain cloud here, but do we really believe that acquiring Danielle Hunter is going to be the thing that pushes Denver over the top of the AFC as he's towards the end of his career and he wants a big contract and a long-term contract? No, I'll pass on this. Danielle Hunter's a great player. I just don't think the timing is right for Denver without a second rounder already and only 1 third rounder to move on and go after the first 2 days of the draft, just 1 pick to show for, when this team, it needs some bullets in the chamber, right? They are not one of the juggernauts of the AFC or the NFC where they had the luxury of moving on from assets to help win now. No, Denver needs to capitalize on these draft classes to help replenish some of the depth they are sorely missing in spots. So for that reason, I'm passing.